Hollow Knight Silksong just came out and it's an absolute banger. But my quirk is that anytime I like anything ever, I can't help but make it real with melted plastic. I was perusing the internet when I found the perfect file. It's an STL for Hornet's mask, but it doesn't come with a needle. So we're gonna 3D model the needle in Blender, get it printed, and then we're gonna make both of the pieces of the cosplay. I already went ahead and printed the helmet on my Bamboo Labs P1S. It came in multiple parts. We have the actual eye sockets here, and then we have split in two the connector piece, so that could fit on the P1S, and then back here, of course, we have the horns. There's two of those there. With the needle modeled, I did have to print it out twice because this is the size of the first one, and I mean, if you can tell, I mean, I can't get the camera back far enough, but this isn't nearly big enough to scale. So I scaled it up correctly, and now we have this. And this is just one piece, and it's already the size of my head. As you can tell, it's already sanded. We did skip that part for the needle simply because nobody wants to watch hours of sanding. So I don't have enough space to put the entire build out on this table because it is pretty big, but here it is in all of its glory. I guess I might have missed sanding the ring, but we'll get to that. I did insert holes for 1/2-inch dowels all the way through, and then of course in Bamboo Studio, I added the connectors to make sure that it sits accurately on top. Like I said, the sanding process itself is incredibly simple, it's just tedious. We're gonna cover this helmet in 120 grit sandpaper, and that's just the start. Like, there are levels to this. I make sure to get inside all the little details because that will really show when it's time to paint.
Nothing about sanding is a good time. This has taken way too much time and effort, and we're finally done with the first pass.
You see this? This is 220 grit. Once we're done with the 120 grit, we have to come back and hit it with 220 grit, and then after that, we do another pass. I might seem like I'm being extra, but sanding 3D prints will never be my favorite part. I made a mistake that could jeopardize this project. So this is the top part towards Hornet's needle. As you can see, it's missing the very tippy top. So it's not sharp like it's supposed to be for a needle. And if you're wondering where the tip went, that is a great question, because so am I. I don't know where it went. It's somewhere in my workshop. It fell somewhere, but the problem is it's a super small piece. Here is the actual print. And what I did was I laid it all down and I measured it all the way across. Specifically from the bottom of the circle all the way to the tippity tip of the tippy tip. That came out to about 42 inches. And we're gonna hope for the best. It's gonna take like 15 minutes to print, but while that's printing, since everything else is sanded, we're gonna go ahead and get this washed in the wash basin. Now, if you're wondering why this looks like found footage, that's because it is. Ooh. The laundry room where my wash basin is has like god-awful lighting, so I have to do whatever I can, and by that I mean prop my phone up right above the wash basin so I can see what I'm doing. Now, I literally just washed this like it's any other dish, just because we want to get all the gross sanding residue off. When it's time to prime it, if we don't wash it, it's going to have a rough texture. After the printing process for the top piece, we have beat the system. With that random measurement, I printed out just the very tip top of the needle, and it came out pretty darn good. But because my measurement could not be the most accurate thing on this planet, there is a little bit of a size discrepancy. This is just a little bit bigger than this receiving end here. So, I mean, it's an easy fix. All I gotta do is sand it down a little bit, and now we're good to assemble the entire thing. So the sanding process, I think you can do inside with the right ventilation and PPE, but for the assembly, we're using 3D gloop, and this stuff is like crazy toxic. I actually haven't even smelled it yet because every time I use a respirator. But one thing I know for certain is those fumes will linger. So if you do this like in your room, even when you're done with it, it's just going to be stagnant air filled with glue fumes, and that's not good. Past that, the assembly process is pretty straightforward. You just put gloop on both sides and press them together for as long as you can. I think it says like 5 minutes, but then it sets in a full 24 hours. And for the needle, I did want to include a 1/2-inch dowel for extra stability, but the size of the needle isn't perfectly flush for 3 dowels, so I did have to trim one of these. But once you do that, it's clearly a perfect fit.
And just like that, we have a full Hornet's needle.
It's actually surprisingly light. I mean, I didn't expect it to weigh too much, but at 7 or 8% infill, it's even better. Now, I gotta say, I'm really glad that this isn't for me, because like, no, not a chance. Not a chance. Like, it doesn't even come over the top of my head. If I try and put the, what on earth? Now, obviously, it's a little bit of a weight thing, but also, I just have a big-ass head. But, like I said, this one's not for me, so all we gotta do now is get it primed and painted. Now, I'm gonna mask off each of the sections where the magnets are gonna go, because I kid you not, even one layer of primer is gonna fill those magnet spots to where they won't fit. And that's because we use 2-in-1 filler primer. This is gonna fill in any leftover layer lines or rough spots, and it's sandable, so we can get a smooth finish once it dries. I try and move while I spray, and don't spray in one spot for too long because I don't want it to build up. Now, as you can see, once it's dry, we still have one problem. These seams are massive. And for that, we have another tool, and that's Bondo Glazing and Spot Putty. This stuff I apply with some EVA foam, just spare from any other project or scraps that I have lying around, and I really just kind of slap it in there. I really don't recommend putting on too much, because even though we are going to sand it down, it will take shape, and that's kind of the case with this build. I got a little bit Bondo happy, and the buildup was kind of insane. And after it dries, it does look concerning, like you can still see the seam, but we are going to sand it once more. I do this with 400 grit sandpaper, and that really smooths out the Bondo itself to match the primer. You just have to do the entire prop again. And that is exactly why my motto is born to print, forced to sand, because 3D printing and modeling is a great time, but sanding 73 times is not. Now, I may have forgotten to record, but it is important to give these things another wash before we prime it again, because you don't want, once again, all that gunk from the Bondo and any other filler primer to be under your next layer of primer. Don't you just love how many layers of everything we have to do? After the second layer of filler primer, this is where it really comes together. Like this step is important. We're gonna wet sand that layer of filler primer with 600, then 800 grit sandpaper. And I push it up to 1,000. You really could go up to 1,500 to 2,000 if you wanted to polish it, but I personally don't ever feel the need to go that far. 600, 800, then 1,000 works for me. And for big props, you can also skip the 1,000 and just do 600 and then 800. But alas, after that, all the hard stuff is done. And now we move on to my favorite part, which is painting. I'm going to use Rust-Oleum's Metallic for the needle because it's just a metal silver, and the same thing as before, super light passes, not too close, because this we don't want to gunk up. If it layers and drips, there's really not a way to fix that except for stripping it off and going again, and I don't want to do all that. And for the helmet, we have a Rust-Oleum flat white. Super basic, but the white is even less forgiving than the silver. So this, like, work fast and work in layers. Like white, I do 2 or 3 layers per project, as opposed to darker colors, which you can usually get in one. The key here is patience. I don't have any of that, so I tend to go a little bit too hard, but we're gonna avoid that this time by going slow. And here's what it looks like after it's been painted. My video light doesn't do it good justice and kind of blows it out, but trust me, this thing looks great. With this project all painted, we're officially done outside, and that's a relief because the mosquitoes have been eating my I said legs, but you probably think I said something weird, don't you, weirdo? But we're not done quite yet. This build comes with inserts for 10mm magnets, so you can actually, connect the front 2 parts together, the front and the back. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to put it on. So we have to get those added, and then of course, some eye holes. Honestly, I'm traumatized by magnets because on the first project that I used them, I accidentally glued them in the wrong way. So when you put the 2 pieces together, they pushed apart instead of stuck together. Now what I do is I put in all the magnets in on one side, flip the stack, and then mark the magnets with the Sharpie to make sure I'm putting them in correctly. Because now if I mess this up, there's no going back. I would have to start from literally the beginning. While that dries, we're gonna get the eyes on for the first part. And for this, I think I just have some cheap like cosplay see-through plastic from Amazon, where you could probably see me through it. Yeah, you can. This is going to be the eyes, and it looks so good. Or at least for this one, at least. I wouldn't use it for like a visor or anything like that, but in this case where it's like the big eyes, perfectly. And we're going to use some hot glue for that. When I cut out the general shape of the eyes here, I gave it a lot of extra space, because the last thing you want to do is cut it too small and then not have enough for full coverage. The excess can be trimmed off after it's glued onto the helmet, but if it's too small, there's just nothing you can do. Now, one thing I didn't account for is hot glue and plastic melts the plastic. So the hot glue started kind of melting through the eye mesh, and it's okay because I was still able to glue it on, but if I held it for too long, it would just melt it entirely. The hot glue was a little bit harder to work with than I anticipated, but we got the eyeballs on there. Well, the eye sheets. And now you can't see my face too well, which is what you want when it comes to cosplay. But I can see out of this. So this first part is done, and the magnets are also dry. So now we're gonna try, oh, I wonder, can you? No, you can't. But since the magnets are dry, we're gonna try and piece this thing together and see how well that works. Feels like it's working pretty good. So that seems to be pretty stuck on there. And that is what we call a finished helmet that I literally cannot wear. Hang on, wait. Ooh. My head is still far too big to actually fit in this thing. So let's just say that this is what it looks like when you wear it. And of course, we already showed the needle is all done as well. This thing probably stands at 3.5, 4 feet tall. And it was actually relatively simple to put together. The hardest part about anything flat like this, swords, needles, whatever, is always gonna be the seam lines. Like no matter how well you do Bondo, there's a chance that you're gonna see the seams. And that's my least favorite part. But between these two items, we officially have a full Hornet build from a Hollow Knight Silksong, and I could not be happier with how this turned out. This is flat white, and I actually think I prefer that. I was gonna go with something glossy, but I kind of feel like the flat white looks a lot better. And with all of that and this, that is another build in the books. And funny enough, my fiance may or may not have accidentally dropped this and popped the tip off just a little bit. I don't know if you can see it. There we go. So I got it resecured. We're gonna get it respray painted. The full build for this was really fun. The file for the needle will be in the description, as well as for the helmet. The file for the needle comes from me, but the helmet I did buy online. And it goes without saying, if you learned anything or potentially want to support me a little bit further, maybe hit that subscribe button and drop a like. It really helps the channel go far, and of course helps me on my journey to give away free cosplay. That's it from me today, so get to printing Hornet's needle, and of course, never stop creating.